Hi, everyone, and welcome to Café IBTTA. I'm Pat Jones. My guest today is Amanda Baxter, Senior Vice President, Virginia Market and Operations, North America at Transurban. Amanda oversees all operations, maintenance, and pricing of Transurban's 53-mile express lanes network and construction projects totaling 49 miles in Northern Virginia and Maryland. She previously served as project director for the 495 Northern Extension project. Amanda has over 2 decades of experience in both public and private sectors, leading, developing, and managing complex transportation and infrastructure projects, working directly for the owner agency and as owner's representative. Amanda is a 2019 graduate of the IBTTA Leadership Academy and is poised to join the IBTTA Board of Directors in January of 2023. Amanda, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks so much, Pat. I'm really excited to be part of Café IBTTA. It kept me going during the pandemic for sure. So I really enjoy these.
Well, that's great. That's really good to hear. Well, today we have a big shout out to Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, who set foot on the moon for the first time 53 years ago today. July 20, 1969. And also thanks to astronaut Michael Collins, who flew the command module around the moon, waiting to dock with the returning lunar module. Well, this is Café IBTTA, where we drink coffee and talk about things that are interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. We are taking your questions and comments, and we want to get started right away. One of the things I did not mention in Amanda's biography is that she earned a BS degree in Geological and Earth Sciences, or geosciences. So, in the chat function, please tell us your favorite field of study, what you studied in college, real or imagined. What's your favorite field of study? Tell us in the chat function right now.
Hey, Pat, so I've just been told that the chat is disabled, so I'm trying to fix that. But in the meantime, we can move on.
All right. Thanks, Kristen. Well, we'll come back to the, once the chat is re-enabled, you can tell us your favorite fields of study. And we really do want to hear your comments and questions with Amanda today. So Amanda, let's talk about you and Transurban. Tell us a little bit about the company and your role in Northern Virginia.
Sure, thanks, Pat. So Transurban, we're one of the world's largest toll operators. We're based out of Australia, but here in North America, we operate the A25 bridge in Montreal, and also the 395, 95, and 495 express lanes here in Virginia. But even before we get to what we operate, we at Transurban, we are partners that evaluate solutions, working with our stakeholders to develop and construct infrastructure that we eventually will operate. And my role in Virginia includes all of those aspects.
Now, Amanda, Transurban, it represents a different facet of tolling in the U.S. Most people in the U.S. think of toll facilities as being public authorities. Transurban is different. Tell us how.
Sure. I'll focus on the North American Virginia market, where my purview. And when we develop it and operate our express lanes, we do that through a public-private partnership. And here in Virginia, that's between Transurban and the Virginia Department of Transportation. It's actually a law here in Virginia. And the infrastructure or the assets that we construct, they are not privately owned. Rather, we have an agreement with Virginia to operate the lanes once we build those lanes. And all the toll revenue that we collect reimburses us for the investment that we made to build those lanes. And I think what makes that different than the public entity taking it on is we transfer that risk to us. So these are very long concessions, 50 years and plus in the cases of the express lanes here in Northern Virginia. So if traffic doesn't show up, that's our risk. And that's different. If you're public sector building lanes, that's a taxpayer burden if you're counting on a revenue to pay back your financing from building these toll roads to these major projects. So it's really a transfer. And then I just think that the benefit and maybe this is a little bit of express lanes benefit mixed into the taking over or handing over the project to the private sector. Is the obvious benefit with the express lanes is just congestion relief. These trips that you take it's a service within our network. And it's like trip insurance, if you think about it. So it's reliability that the regular lanes can't provide in DC rush hour. And the other thing I wanted to share today to everyone too is something that people don't think about with the networks that we build out here is we are essentially building a brand new network, both for ourselves, but also for Virginia taxpayers. So for example, right now, the 495 Express Lanes, and I point, I'm sitting in our conference room and they're right over here. The 495 Express Lanes project, the American Legion Bridge. And we're replacing lots of infrastructure because we're putting our express lanes right down the middle of the Capitol Beltway, extending them to the American Legion Bridge. And the Georgetown Pike interchange, it was built in 1961, back when the express lanes were constructed. Virginia is getting a new Georgetown Pike interchange along with everything else. So we can really uplift that infrastructure that's aging. So when we open in 2025, we take over the maintenance of our lanes. We have requirements when our concession ends to hand that back in a certain level of state of repair, with the Commonwealth. And just think about how Virginia can now reprioritize all the maintenance dollars that would be otherwise spent to, inspect, repair, maintain the aging infrastructure, because we're basically giving the Beltway a facelift and a reboot. So that's another, maybe not the shiny benefit that we always talk about when we put our lanes in. And then lastly, through our agreements with Virginia, the other benefit too, which makes this quite different than a public model, is that through our financing, we can dedicate transit funding to provide people that access along our lanes because we have that reliable, managed free flow. So those are just a couple of examples, Pat.
That's great, Amanda. And I live in Northern Virginia, so I'm very familiar with the Transurban network, 395, 495, 95. In fact, my daughter who lives in Richmond. She was staying with us for a couple of days for work earlier this week. And she texted us when she got home and she said, it only took me 2 hours. The express lanes were great. The express lanes were open. So definitely.
Love hearing that.
Definitely the time savings is a big incentive, and also the fact that you're supporting a region-wide network with support for transit. So kudos to you. Kristen, I was thinking that maybe to overcome the fact that the chat is down, people could email me at pjones@ibtta.org if they have a question for Amanda. So that email address again, pjones@ibtta.org, and I will keep my eye out for questions that you may have for Amanda. Amanda, you described very well the network that Transurban has, and it's really, in an earlier conversation we had, you said that it's a network within a network. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think that phrase would actually make our operations team smile, because I say that often to them. They live and breathe it every day. So you can imagine what it's like to have our express lanes network woven into the fabric of the other roadways, or we call the regular lanes. We're a choice to get on our lane. So we have traffic running on either side. And you can imagine the dynamics of operating a road like that. We're right outside of the nation's capital. There are, I think, a 4th of July coordination. There's just multiple agencies to coordinate events. There's incidents. There's presidential caravans. There's just a lot of things that we are part of coordinating. There's other projects that happen along our network as well. So if people need to move our utilities, that operate our lanes, there's a coordination point. So we really are touched by everything that's happening here in the region. And one aspect of that too, and something that you really have to value in that is that we're really committed to safety. And we are, operators of the longest reversible system down along 395 and 95. And just, you have to respect the fact that no matter what way those lanes are pointing, you have traffic moving in both directions on either side of the network. So that network in a network really is important there. But I'm happy to say that we probably have one of the best traffic control rooms out there. These people, think about the pandemic, those lanes were still operating. They show up. It's a really neat place to watch them reverse the lanes during the day. They are probably, and not to, I have a lot of other cool and calm colleagues here, but they're probably some of the coolest and calmest people here at Transurban to be able to work in that environment.
Amanda, you mentioned safety, and as I understand it, safety is really one of your core values, and you have some unique challenges in terms of safety operating reversible express lanes. Talk to us a little bit about some of those safety challenges and how you address them.
Sure. Well, safety, as I mentioned, is number one on a day-to-day with operations. But we appreciate that small things can make a big difference. And when we took over the express lanes, originally they were HOV reversible lanes that IBTTA operated. When we took them over and converted them, we did notice there were quite a bit of gate strikes that were happening along the corridor. And there's only so many gates to hit before you're actually on the lanes in the wrong direction. So we wanted to reduce that. And it was a very, it wasn't this super flashy fix. It was basically adding flags to the bottom of our gates so they were just more visible. I mean, they are metal gates, so I'm sure they get lost in the sunlight and in the general environment. And it actually reduced our gate strikes by 60% just by putting flags on the gates. And we did something similar really recently near our Pentagon entrance. It was part of the 395 express lanes. Again, we have gates on a side street there at the Pentagon, and they also were getting struck. And we were able to put a very long banner on those gates that says, "Do not enter," when they're down. Now, a lot of these things seem very obvious, but people are driving, they're making split decisions, and you need to find the best way to safely communicate with them. And we've really seen a meaningful impact. And so, I mean, they're small but mighty changes. We have 100% camera coverage of our express lanes from a safety perspective, so we see all. We have wrong way driving detection along our 95 corridor, which is very important when you're operating a reversible system. We also, from a technology, you'll like this, Pat. We're also looking at reusing some of the AI functions in our cameras to perform maintenance activities. So we think about it, we don't have to have a maintenance of traffic set up along the side of the road, our inspectors out there. It's safer for our customers driving because there's not the lane closures. So again, it doesn't have to be whiz bang to make a big difference. So we're looking at everything that we possibly can do to keep safety as number one when we operate.
Simple things like flags on the gates can really make a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I told you, Pat, that another thing, we're actually working with Waze right now because the navigation systems will need to sync with our reversing schedule. So we're looking at ways. So people have hit our gates before, and they would say, well, the navigation system told me to go that way. And so we really need to try to better sync our schedules with those systems.
Amanda, here's a question from Ian Deckard with the Kansas Turnpike Authority. He says, with a large amount of traffic, which is only growing regionally, plus the special types of traffic you support, how does Transurban overcome the challenge of a lack of usable space for lanes when thinking construction or upgrades?
That's an excellent question, because we do tend to have very limited space as far as shoulders on the side of the roads to break down. On our 395 system, we have technology that we call LUMS, which is Land Use Management System. And there are arrows above each lane that will be able to tell you that all 3 of those lanes are open, or 2 of the lanes, depending on what section of the road you're in, are open. And there'll be a red X if a lane is closed because we might be serving an incident. We also have our very own express assist as well along our lanes that can fuel vehicles, change tires, get them towed off. So we provide that service on our lanes as well, because we need to provide that service to our customers. So we do manage it as best as we can. And I think that, you know, we have a lot of great collaboration with the other network around us to be able to safely move people off our roadway.
Amanda, let's talk a little bit about you, about Amanda Baxter. Most of the people I know in the tolling industry took kind of a circuitous route to the tolling industry. They didn't go to college and say, I'm going to go operate express lanes. Tell us a little bit about how you made your journey to the transportation industry and Transurban.
Sure. Maybe it was the geology degree that you said I had that made it mysterious of how I got here. And it certainly has been a journey since then. And, you know, I started my career in geotechnical engineering and very quickly went into the environmental field after that. And I would say that that's where transportation actually found me. I probably didn't find it, but I made my transportation debut in the environmental policy and NEPA space. And really from there, it just twisted and turned, and you're in that transportation world. You know, the NEPA piece of projects are very upfront, and it's a great place to see how it's all comes together, because you're doing preliminary engineering and design. And next thing you know, I'm opening up my first toll road in 2017. So it's been a journey.
Amanda, you are extremely busy now, not only doing your job, raising a family, but you're also pursuing an advanced degree. Tell us a little bit about your MBA program and how that's influencing your work and personal life.
Sure. It has taught me how to prioritize much better than I have in the past. I'm currently, I'm halfway through. I'm a year in now to getting my MBA from Darden, University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. It's a great program. I go away once a month for that program, and I have classes online during the week. I would probably argue, my husband would probably say that sometimes my learning team is more like my family these days, because we all are supporting each other. It's an executive program, so everyone in the program has full-time jobs. So we're all in the same boat. We're all under the same pressures. Many of us have families, but it's very challenging, and it just really makes you value what's most. And so I carve out that family time as I'm discounting cash flows for my finance class right now, or running to my next meeting at Transurban, but I make it work.
Amanda, this is an unusual time for everybody in the world, in the, I guess we call this COVID, post-COVID epidemic, pandemic kind of world. It's changed our working situations, our travel situations, the way we deal with our colleagues. And you said to me last week about that, how I think, you said, I think of all the good things we left behind because we didn't create a space for people to speak up. Tell us more about that sentiment.
Sure, I do think it parallels COVID, because a lot happened in our nation while we were locked in our homes, a lot. And we had to really relearn some really hard things as a community and just as a general people here in the United States. And so I guess I've just been thinking a lot about how powerful that diverse voice can actually be at the table. So I'm looking at the tables that I get to sit at, and I often think about the voices that never got a chance to be heard. And I wonder about how far along we could have or would have been if we gave them space to be heard. So it's just something I've reflected over COVID, that as a leader, I remind myself that I have the ability to create that space for people, and I'm really committed to that. So that's been one of my big takeaways over the last couple of years.
Speaking about that interrelationship between your team, your Darden team, your employees, but also your family. You and your husband are raising a son and who's about to enter his freshman year of high school. And you told me about an attitude you bring to that there are no do-overs. There are no do-overs with this. Tell us what that means to you.
So I think it's life raising an only child. It is a series of firsts and lasts. So I'm never the experienced parent showing up saying, yes, I've had a high schooler before. Like, it's always fresh for my husband and I. We don't know the drill. Everything is new. And so, as he enters high school, I'm just going to soak it all in, finish up my program, but just soak it all in and try not to panic in the meantime. But I definitely really respect the fact that I get to experience it kind of one and done with him.
Yeah. So I want to make a plug for the IBTTA Leadership Academy. We are accepting applications for the 2023 course of the IBTTA Leadership Academy. And Amanda, you are a 2019 graduate of the Leadership Academy. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that class.
Well, I think I'll just start with just wow. I probably didn't know what I was getting into at first, honestly. And that's a good thing. When I think about this program and the cohort that I was part, it really, the people in the cohort really came from different corners of this industry. It's such a unique situation to be in. It's a very diverse crowd. It created rich discussion, what's mattering to people. I think one of the people in our program, he was a concessionaire from Greece, for example. It was great networking, challenging conversations. There's just some deep moments in that leadership that you experience that really push you to think differently and show up differently, and lasting friendships. And it's a fantastic program. And I think IBTTA really creates a safe space for people to ask questions and really learn from each other.
That's great. Yeah, I think you speak for just about every alumnus of the Leadership Academy, that it's just sort of a life-changing experience, and it gives you new friends and colleagues for life.
Absolutely.
Cesar Segovia has a question. You may have mentioned this already. Can you give us some stats about your system in Virginia? Daily traffic, express lane shares, variation of traffic on weekdays versus weekend, that kind of thing.
That's a statistical question. I'm going to just generalize it. As far as daily traffic, as far as our pandemic pre and post, on 95, we're basically back to pre-pandemic levels on 95. Right. We have been down, and we're not quite there on our 495 express lanes. I think the areas where there's smaller trips, like on 495, it's a lot of smaller origin and destinations. The traffic is slow to come back in those locations. But just to give you a profile, Cesar, the express lane shares, obviously it's a managed lane, so we need to keep our lanes free flowing at all times, and the pricing does that for us. We are certainly see more traffic on our 95 during the weekends than we would otherwise during the week, because that really is accommodating peak period. But the pandemic has just changed the way that people are moving, and so you see these, non-discretionary trips happening that it's a daily challenge, and we probably make our traffic team sweat here about how many questions we have to ask about the forecast upon forecast. But I think we really have a good handle of how people are using. Our customers are not everyday customers on our express lanes. They really are. The value proposition is truly the congestion relief and avoiding it. But interestingly, when there wasn't congestion during the pandemic, we still had traffic on our lanes. So there's other added benefits to using our lanes. I think people feel safer on our lanes. We've gotten a lot of comments. We do a state of the lane survey yearly. Our customer team that works in our tolling operations, they do a state of the lanes to just really understand. We have a whole travel behavior team that does studies throughout the year to understand how we interact with not only our customers, but just the other traveling public. So it's complicated. That's a complicated question, but I will leave it at that. We are slowly getting back to what our new normal will be.
Yep, great. All right, I just got a note from my team. I said earlier that we're accepting applications for the Leadership Academy. Not yet. It's going to be open. Applications will start. We will start to accept applications a little bit later in the summer. So I rushed the net on that one. But at any rate, Leadership Academy is a great program, and we hope to see lots of applications from fine professionals in the industry later this summer. Amanda, we talked a little bit about toll concessions, and there aren't as many concessions in the US as, for instance, there are in Europe. What do you see as the future of tolling concessions in the US?
Yeah, that's a good question. Virginia certainly has been a leader in this space, and I really think that there's a right application of these concessions. It's a powerful tool when governments cannot take on the risk of funding these major projects and delivering them efficiently, and so that's something we can step in and we can take that financing risk for them. But I also think, and Pat, I know IBTTA is involved in this and is making a play in just road user charging and user fees in general. And I think as we move more towards that model, the toll concessions have a place, especially when they provide a service like our concessions do, differently than what the regular lanes do. And so, if you can get congestion relief and reliability and pay a toll for that, or you could pay a user fee otherwise, I think the value proposition has a place to shift. So I think it's catching on, and you see a lot of, we've seen now our partners in Maryland really move towards that model. Georgia is really taking off in that space as well with a major project down there. So I think it's definitely a growing trend here in the US, and we're just excited to be here and watch it all happen and hopefully participate in this.
Amanda, building on that theme of providing additional services that perhaps you don't see on regular roadways, you mentioned to me that we live and breathe our stakeholders. What does that mean to you, and why is that important?
So stakeholders, that's a big deal here at Transurban, because it actually just drives our strategy. Stakeholders to us are the community, it's the governments, it's the customers and really we look to partner with them. We have really long concessions, and so we really need a long partnership. And that is not just with our concession agreement with the DOT, it's also with the community in which we provide this service and the customers that we provide the service to. So it drives us, and if we get the stakeholders right, then the partnership will follow. And I think that that's what we keep top of mind here.
Amanda, I'm going to make a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to come back to you for some final words of wisdom. So everybody, don't forget to complete the survey at the end of Café IBTTA. We always like to hear your thoughts so we can make the program even better. Coming up, we have July 21, the Leadership Academy Alumni Association, or LAAA, Trivia Night fundraiser. Then on August 4th, we have the LAAA Poker Night fundraiser. All right, so we are accommodating the trivia fans and the poker fans as well. September 17 through 20, it's the IBTTA annual meeting in Austin, Texas. I know that registration for that is open, and we already have a couple hundred attendees. And then our final in-person meeting of the year, October 23 through 25, is the Global Tolling Summit in Dublin, Ireland. Please visit the IBTTA website for details on all our in-person and virtual meetings. Well, Amanda, what final words of wisdom do you have before we sign off today?
I think you can find success in ambiguity is my final words for today. And I think I've navigated that in my career. You've got to be comfortable with it a little bit to do that. But I would say if you have the itch, I say go for it. And if you don't know, go for it and surround yourself with really good people. That's my sage advice for today.
Embrace ambiguity and go for it. Beautiful. Amanda, thank you so much for being our guest today. It's been a delight. And to all our viewers, be safe, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks, Amanda.